Characterized by lowlands of about 6 meters below sea level, Bayelsa experiences perennial flooding every year. This development is made worse by global warming in a state where gas flaring and oil exploration take place on a daily basis. In the first of our Sunday specials tonight, Veteme George examines the situation in Bayelsa, rated a grade A flood disaster state in 2012 and this year.
Tearing through roads, the flood waters head to towns and communities, destroying everything in its path. It appears nature is fighting back after years of neglect and human oppression made worse by what experts call global warming. This was the experience of several states, including Bayelsa in 2012, a grade A flood disaster state strategically characterized by lowlands of about 6 meters below sea level. At the peak of the ravaging flood, farmlands were washed away, along with damage to property, causing movement to strategic highlands and migration from rural to urban areas for safety. Traveling to Port Harcourt, the River State capital, and other parts was by trucks, as flood waters made it difficult for commercial vehicles and buses to drive on the east-west road. Flood victims flooded the internally displaced persons camps in Yenagoa, attracting visitors and sympathizers, including then-President Goodluck Jonathan and American gospel artist Juanita Bynum.
Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so.
The flood held its peace, and the people returned home, only confronted by resettlement challenges. 6 years after, the natural hazard poses yet another potent threat by sweeping through communities, evoking a sorry tale from its victims in Sampo, Igbogene, Amasoma, Biseni, and other areas.
We have a me and Benny Bodap Mane or Tungbalabakpa, Swang Barakbafa.
We are very prone to diseases like cholera, diarrhea, and all the rest. Our Jeep Oil Company and equally the Shell Company, which is SPDC, we are calling on them to really help us. We are really suffering.
The lamentations of displaced persons echoed in Government House, Yenagoa, prompting a swift response from the Bayelsa governor, who toured some affected areas, including Tororua, his hometown. Deputy Governor Boribua Jonah ensured that health units were established in all the IDP camps.
The entire state, is below sea level. And secondly, all the major rivers and tributaries through which water flows from the River Niger and Benue to the Atlantic pass through Bayelsa State. 70% of our communities are under water now, and people are now grappling for survival.
All the water we've seen from Lokoja, from Niger, will end up here. And so many more people will be affected. And so we have seen, I've gone on with His Excellency, the governor and the deputy governor. I've seen myself, and I think it is pathetic. And I'm taking the report back home. And more support will come from the federal government.
Overwhelming scientific consensus maintains that climate change is due primarily to the human use of fossil fuels, which releases carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the air. The gases trap heat within the atmosphere, which can have a range of effects on ecosystems, including rising sea levels. And that is also a contributory factor to perennial flooding in Bayelsa.
We have an ecological fund sitting in Abuja, and the people of the Niger Delta that produce the oil, we are giving a paltry 13%. And 87% is left in Abuja. And that is not what a federal system of government should be.
The federal government of Nigeria takes 2 billion barrels of oil from the bowels of this land on daily basis. A few days' supplies of the crude oil, they will have sufficient money to dredge the entire waterways of the Niger Delta, sandfill all the communities in the Niger Delta, reclaim all the communities in the Niger Delta, protect the shores of all communities in the Niger Delta, and there will never be flood again for the next 500 years.
On October the 19th, 2018, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo was at 2 Igbogene internally displaced persons camps after having an aerial view of flood-impacted communities.
Bayelsa Noah.
Nigeria's number 2 man prefers solutions to the menace of the natural hazard.
We might need to engage in dredging. Then we must also stop a situation where solid waste is dumped into estuaries, solid waste is dumped into water bodies, because that also affects the situation. So we must prevent that as well, to ensure that we don't block the drainages, we don't block the estuaries, and we don't block the waterways, so that there will be no flooding.
Oga VP, welcome to the headquarters of flooding. After the flood, there is going to be life even more abundant in Jesus' name.
Flood waters may still be very high in Biseni, Igbogene, and other parts of Bayelsa. But here in Sampo, this mark indicates that the waters are fast receding. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has preferred dredging of rivers as one of the solutions to the perennial hazard. And now the people look up to the federal government to embark on such projects and keep the angry waters at bay once and for all. Ovieteme George, TVC News, Sampo, Bayelsa State.